Are you a 7 on the Enneagram or not? Now, amongst all the Enneagram types, I do feel, not all the time, but generally speaking, 7 tends to be easier to spot itself amongst the descriptions. Although I've seen confusion between 7 and 4, I've seen even 7 and 9 share one or two behaviors, so it can be tricky. Hence this video. I have taken all of what I've learned over many years of working with this, with clients and training Enneagram coaches, and I've distilled everything into 5 key insights to help you to determine whether you are indeed a 7 or not. I feel like saying to be or not to be, but that's entirely not the point. Here are the 5 things we're going to cover. First, I'm going to share with you a little soundbite, what I call a soundbite. And that's going to be a fun metaphor that really helps people to go, that I see myself in that, or not. Second, we're going to layer on the blue pearl, which is a very important understanding. It is the reason for the type, and it is key to layering on your adventure of self-discovery. Yes, I'm leaning into 7 language. Then we're going to layer on the polarity, which is a very key next step. Then we're going to look at whether you relate to the harmonic that 7 belongs to. Ooh, all good stuff. And then finally, we'll put a bow on it by exploring the growth path of type 7 to see how and if you relate to that. Picture a river with a nice little dinghy or little boat waiting. To compare 6 to 7 for a moment so that you really get a clear idea. A beautiful 6 on the Enneagram would approach the boat with caution, would perhaps phone 3 or 4 friends to check, have they gone on boats? What did they learn? Ask some questions, do some research. Our other blue pearl 5 would do a similar thing, but not so much phone friends, more like research alone. So both 5 and 6 more cautionary, more contingency planning. Our 6 leaning into connecting for support and feedback. Our 5 more deep dive, laser, intense thinking and studying. Our 7 also a blue pearl. Very different approach to the boat. Yay, boats! How long has it been since I've been in a boat? Or, gee, I've always wanted to go in a little dinghy. Jumps into boat. Happy to be in the boat. Can't wait to see what's round the bend. Oh, I don't have oars. That's all right. These can act like oars, reframing in the positive. And that, if you are a 7 on the Enneagram, should cause a little bit of humor and laughter of, I can be like that. So jumping in the adventure boat, because our 7s are all about YOLO, you only live once, and FOMO, fear of missing out. This spirit of adventure, this spirit of not being held back by fear. When you see what blue pearl means and you connect 7, it's going to be a little bit of a surprise, because 7s often don't relate fully to what the blue pearl represents until they understand it. So let's have a look at that next. I use the pearl metaphor because it speaks to what the Enneagram is based on. A lot of people make this mistake, which is why I repeat it so many times. The Enneagram is not based on what we do. It's not based on what we do. It's based on the reason, the why behind what we do. So we can all do the same thing. We can all label Tupperware, or we can all tidy up for fun. Maybe not, but you know what I mean. We can all do things that look the same on the outside. But why? If we all are kind and giving and we give a lot of ourselves, does that mean we are all 2s? If we like going on adventures, Does that mean we're all sevens? No. So even though we talked about jumping in that adventure boat as a good metaphor for seven, we do need to check, are you doing what you're doing because you're a blue pill? Or are you a red or a green pill? If you are a seven, the blue pearl is still the driver. So like a pearl forms around a grain of sand, that the oyster covers the pearl, covers the grain of sand in mother of pearl to eventually become a pearl, your personality forms in the same way. There is a grain of sand underneath that is the reason. And these 4 key words help us to understand what that grain of sand is. First, head. And what we mean by this is headspace, above the shoulders, that center of intelligence, compared to and different from the heart center as a center of intelligence and the gut as a center of intelligence. 3 centers of intelligence that all contribute something beautiful. We all have all 3, but which one is your center of gravity? If you're a 7, if you're a blue pill, it is the mind of thinking, analyzing above the shoulders. I call them essays of the mind. Now we connect that to fear. Now here's the thing. 7s don't often relate to the idea of fear because, after all, they're the ones that just jump in the boat. If you're a 7, you've probably done a lot of brave, daring things, all in the spirit of a good time, all in the spirit of don't dare me. Don't dare me. And you're going to see this is because of your polarity, which we'll get to next. But it also is because each Enneagram type deals with their pearl differently. So the way a 7 processes fear and processes anxiety is very different to a 5 and a 6. So you do want to think of fear as a low volume all the way to a high volume. The low volume expression of fear looks quite different, doesn't it? Jittery restlessness in a 7. Not so much the sort of caution and the hesitancy of the 6 and the 5, but still nervousness. There can be a lot of nervousness in a 7, and you'll see especially when the polarity gets triggered. The extreme of fear, when we turn the volume up, can be full-blown fear, even paralysis. But what tends to happen in our 7 is they are drawn to adrenaline and chasing adventure, which sounds like, isn't that still fear? It's a kind of fear, but it's a distracting fear. It's an entertaining fear. It's an I'm alive fear. To run from fear. To run from that deeper dread. I keep myself distracted, entertained, happy, chasing shiny objects. Now that might land for you if you're a 7. So how does the word separation work for a 7? From when we were very young, we used our minds, above the shoulder intelligence, to learn to discern one thing from another, left from right, up from down, past from future. So here's the thing. Our 7s tend to live in the projection of tomorrow's happiness, the imagination of tomorrow the sun will come out. Hear Annie's song singing in my head. The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. And our 7s feel separate from tomorrow's happiness. Therefore, there's this feeling of chasing it. Chasing tomorrow's happiness, separate from the now, which of course is going to be a key to a 7's growth. Our 7 also wants information. They're also seeking information just like their counterpart blue pearls. But this information is the information of the adventure. It's the information that feeds their polarity. So get a sense of how this lands for you. contemplate it, and I'm curious to hear whether you are relating to 7 or not. Now it's time to connect this all to the polarity, which really buttons up the type. I'm free, not trapped. Freedom, but it's blue pearl freedom, not red pearl, not green pearl. Trapped, not red pearl trap, not green pearl, not heart or gut. This is mind. My mind needs to be free. I need to be able to think through and see and perceive options. Otherwise, I get anxious when I feel limited. That is absolutely non-negotiable for our 7s. And if it's not the word anxious, it will at least be restless and suddenly needing to get busy or try something new or not be sitting still. I feel separate from freedom, so I'm chasing it, especially if I'm bored. Boredom creates anxiety often for our beautiful 7s because boredom feels like a trap. And I want information and I love patterns. Our 7s, 6s, and 5s are good at seeing the patterns in the information, but our 7s are delighted by it. It's a feeling of understanding that appeases fear. If I can see the pattern, if I can understand the pattern, then my anxiety gets less, says the 7's mind. Let's connect this to some of these keywords. 7s tend to have these bursts of massive energy. They have a lot of energy for the adventure, the dream. They can feel very alive in that freedom. There's the FOMO, fear of missing out. Chasing the adventure. There's the YOLO, you only live once, so might as well have a good time, hey? Now, something I've learned from my 7 clients is that freedom is a bigger call than happy. A lot and fun. A lot of 7s are pigeonholed very much into the fun. And it can be true. They can have a wildness, a wild child free spirit energy. And certainly, amazingly, our 7s have smiles that you can't beat a 7 smile often. And even when a 7 is describing something tough or something difficult, there can still be often a smile somewhere in there. But they're not just about that. And especially when a 7 grows, you'll find that it is more about freedom. It's more about possibilities. It's more about what's next. What's next? And the cartoon probably says it all. Let's add the harmonic, which of course is going to really confirm or make you question, right? But if you're so far nodding and smiling along, then the harmonic is probably going to just put another layer onto this for you. How is this landing for you so far? The great Enneagram teachers Riso and Hudson contributed many valuable teachings, and one of which is a favorite of mine, and that is the harmonics. But in Cole style, I suppose, I've taken this sophisticated, complex teaching and distilled it into an alliterated, reworded little package. And I'm going to offer it to you now so that you can check whether you relate to the positivity harmonic as a 7. 2, 7, and 9, one from each pearl, green, blue, and red, share what we call the positivity harmonic. As opposed to, and these are my words, the purge harmonic and the practical harmonic. What this means is that our 2, 7, and 9 tend to need something quite specific in order to connect, to bond. It is usually the first thing that is needed to make a bridge to another person or team. Positivity means uplifting, inspirational, aspirational, motivating, affirming, validating. So if you're a 7, if you think about it, it's how you connect. You connect first through something that lifts you up. Then one can get into perhaps the practical, pragmatic conversation or the purging and venting. Understanding this, of course, is key. If you don't relate to this positivity connection, you may want to look at other Enneagram types. It is that helpful and reliable. Stack this on to everything else we've learned, and you should by now have some solid evidence either to support that you are indeed a 7 or not. Let's just layer on the growth path, and then we've got a bow on it. Every type on the Enneagram has a low expression and a high expression as we grow in our wholeness. If you picture an apple tree that needs certain things in order to flourish and grow, every Enneagram type also needs quite specific things. The way I like to teach this and understand it is to think of the growth paths as what we need. So a 7 needs access to 5 in order to grow. It's the sunlight. It's the water that helps the 7 grow to its highest expression. So I do use the language of having a door open or a door closed because that's quite a simple way to go, how open is my door to 5 or how closed? And the more we can open the door to healthy 5, accessing that inside of ourselves, the more we grow. It's also a useful way to quickly figure out what a lower functioning 7 can feel like, look like, and how they experience things. And do remember that this is a moving scale. So you could have a low moment, you could have a low week, and you could have a whole patch of time where you're free of struggle and operating from your highest expression. So let's look at what healthy 5 means, and that's going to give you all the clues you need. What you need to do is think about who you've always been, because if you have grown a lot as a 7, 5 might have been missing when you were younger or years ago, but may be more present today. And that's why, of course, it's so helpful to talk this out, to think this through, because we are gathering these important clues. So healthy 5. The healthy 5 that we access when we grow as a 7 is missing at the lowest expressions. And that includes simply the ability to be still. The ability to easily be laser focused, present in the now. Because remember, what I've showed you is that our 7 can be feeling trapped in that and moving into this perpetual next future space of the mind. But that's actually the healing of a 7, is to learn to not feel anxious in the stillness, in the presentness, in the ability to also deeply, there's a kind of depth to 5's mind. And notice, out of interest, that in order for a 7 to grow, it doesn't leave its pearl, its double blue, which tells us something very important. For a 7 to grow, it doesn't need to access the gut intelligence or the heart intelligence, probably has that already. The growth path is to stay in the mind, but to access a different quality of mind, a more still, laser, deep intelligence, a lens that sharpens instead of bounces, like a laser beam instead of a butterfly. And that's how a 7 grows. When it is blocked, that's of course what it is missing. One of the gifts that I've heard from many of my 7 clients, as well as my 7 loved ones, friends and family, is that 5, when it shows up, not in extreme, just as a balance for 7. I've heard them often describe it as, now I can be happy in the simple moment of right here. And that's probably where the gratitude, which is one of the highest expressions of 7, can really show up. Grateful for the simple, ordinary being here right now, instead of chasing happiness in tomorrow. And of course, isn't this the wonderful gift of the Enneagram, to understand how our operating systems work, how the patterns of personality arise in you. So how strongly do you relate to what I've shared? I hope that it has provided you some important insights to contemplate, a validation or two, or maybe some more adventure-filled questions. If you loved this video, if it's helped you in any way, you know what to do. Great appreciation for the like or the follow or the forwarding on to a friend who might need this.